In today's video, we will talk about cranial nerves and the different foramina in the base of the skull. Now, all of us are aware of the fact that there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. There is also cranial nerve 0, which we have talked about in a previous video where we talked about the olfactory pathway. So now that we have talked about cranial nerve 1, I felt we should also talk about the other 11 cranial nerves and their relation with the foramina in the base of the skull. We'll also talk about some foramina which do not transmit cranial nerves. So I definitely think you will enjoy watching this video because this is a very frequently asked question both in MRCS Part A as well as in any ENT exam. So let's get into it. Let's start with the cranial nerve 1, which is the olfactory nerve, and it enters the skull through the cribriform plate. Now the cribriform plate, in addition to the olfactory nerve, also allows passage of its meningeal coverings. And some viral agents can also reach the brain through the various openings in the cribriform plate. So the olfactory area of the cribriform plate is also known as the dangerous area of the nose, because this is the route of spread of infections from the nose to the brain, or intracranial transmission of infection can happen through the cribriform plate and can have devastating consequences. So this area is also known as the dangerous area of nose, which is definitely different from the dangerous area of the face. So cribriform plate allows the passage of the olfactory nerve along with its meningeal coverings. Next up, we have the optic nerve, which enters the skull through the optic canal. Optic canal also transmits ophthalmic artery and sympathetic fibers. It also transmits its meningeal coverings. We now move on to the third cranial nerve, which is the oculomotor nerve, along with the fourth cranial nerve, trochlear nerve, and the sixth cranial nerve, abducens nerve, along with the first division of the fifth cranial nerve, that is the ophthalmic division, which has 3 branches. All of these things pass through the superior orbital foramen. So superior orbital foramen allows the transmission of so many neural structures: third cranial nerve, oculomotor nerve, fourth cranial nerve, trochlear nerve, and sixth cranial nerve, abducens nerve. And the first division of the trigeminal nerve, or the fifth cranial nerve, the first division is known as ophthalmic division, and it has 3 branches which enter the skull through the superior orbital foramen. These branches are frontal nerve, lacrimal nerve, and nasociliary nerve. Along with all these neural structures, 2 vascular structures, that is the superior and inferior ophthalmic vein, also enter the skull through the superior orbital foramen. Next up, we have the other 2 divisions of the trigeminal nerve, maxillary division and mandibular division. The maxillary division enters the skull through the foramen rotundum. In foramen ovale, we have the male structures. This is a very popular acronym. M standing for mandibular division of trigeminal nerve, A for accessory meningeal artery, L for lesser superficial petrosal nerve, and we have the E for emissary vein. Next up, we have foramen spinosum. Foramen spinosum allows the transmission of middle meningeal artery, middle meningeal vein, and the meningeal branch of the mandibular nerve. Next up, we have the facial nerve and the 8th cranial nerve, or the vestibulocochlear nerve, which enter the skull through the internal acoustic meatus, which also transmits labyrinthine artery and vestibular ganglion. The cranial nerves 9, 10, and 11, that is glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, and accessory nerve respectively, enter the base of the skull through the jugular foramen. But accessory nerve has 2 parts. One part enters through the jugular foramen and the other part enters the skull through the foramen magnum. Apart from these 3 cranial nerves, 3 other structures in fact are also transmitted through the jugular foramen: inferior petrosal sinus, sigmoid sinus, meningeal arteries, and glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, and one part of the accessory nerve is transmitted through the jugular foramen. The other part of the accessory nerve enters the skull through the foramen magnum. This leaves us with only one cranial nerve, that is the 12th cranial nerve, or hypoglossal nerve, which has its own canal, hypoglossal canal, which transmits the hypoglossal nerve. So hypoglossal nerve enters the skull through hypoglossal canal, which is a foramen in the base of the skull. So this was my video on cranial nerves and their relation with the base of the skull foramina, and I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you have any questions or if you notice any errors, please do reach out in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye. And as always, please don't forget to be awesome.